But I think this is a huge learning experience that you just can't get yourself in a spot to go down 10 men against anybody, because when you have a team that is hungry in a competition like this.
Number 106 in the FIFA rankings, take down 30th ranked Canada, a massive upset. Guatemala, what a run they've had, on to the semifinals.
This is CONCACAF at its absolute best, Nate. Fantastic stuff. The margins are so small. When things were up, Canada's up 1-0. Jacob Shaffelburg goes down. You saw Jonathan David also had to come out of this game. It's just one of those things where you cannot blink for 1 second in a CONCACAF competition, because the hunger of these teams, these middle teams in CONCACAF, Guatemala, who didn't have much of a chance going in, people not giving them a chance. Canada things did not go their way just for a little bit. It opened the door, and incredibly, Guatemala is on to a Gold Cup semifinal.
Let's put this into perspective for a second, because at the start of this competition, Canada put Honduras to the sword 6-0 and had a lot of people saying that Canada were the favorites to go on and win this competition. Honduras are now on to the semifinals, and Canada are out. How big of an upset is this today, Canada going down at the hands of the Guatemalans?
It's massive. I think that Canada was looking at this as an opportunity to take that next step. Obviously, with the U.S. men's national team, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with that team, and this is a B-side for U.S. that's been in this tournament. So Canada's looking at this as their best chance to reach a final and take on possibly Mexico in a final, and then they get just... It's one of those things, again, where in a CONCACAF competition, the margins are so tight and so small. Any little mistake that can change a game, and you can find yourself on the losing ends against the Guatemala side. An absolutely massive achievement for Guatemala, but a huge upset as far as Canada's concerned. And Jesse Marsch, that has really talked a big game, has this team believing and playing in a certain style of play that really had them confident going in. And it's just, all it takes is one game, and you go to a PK shootout, and you lose against Guatemala. It's massive.
That style of play from Jesse Marsch, high intensity, high energy, chip on the shoulder. We saw this Canada side get into some dust-ups with Guatemala through the course of this match. And, of course, Shaffelburg gets ejected because of the 2 yellow cards. We could talk about that. Questionable call, possibly. But did they have a tough time walking that line of playing with the edge that Jesse Marsch wants, but keeping their wits about them in this match?
Yeah, I mean, I won't blame that for today's double yellow card. I really didn't like the call. It was, Shaffelburg is really just in a tough spot. But yes, I think that towing that line is so crucial, especially in these type of competitions in international football. And maybe just took a step over the line too many times in this competition, Canada, where the physical play is good and it's what you want. And you want this team to play with grit and understanding that they're not going to beat any of these other teams, even in CONCACAF, with just pure skill. There needs to be some gamesmanship. There needs to be some physical play, and making sure you've always put in a hard boot as far as Canada is concerned. But maybe towing that line is just a little tough for them, not really understanding how far they can go. I saw Tejan Buchanan earlier in the game as well, where, he's getting upset, going after some guys. It's good, but you need to keep your head about you every single time. And in these international competitions, it's very easy to have a lapse in judgment, to have one moment where things just go wrong, and then it can all unravel for you.
I think this is all very interesting, too, to view it through the lens of Jesse Marsch coaching the Canadian national team. I think a lot of Americans were watching saying, that should have been our guy. And for a while there, it was looking like Canada were the better side than the United States, especially when you just go back to the friendlies before this Gold Cup started. I wonder how much this changes the way people look at Canada. Now, remember, they also drew to Curacao. And this is a situation where after that, Jesse Marsch said, we're not going to underestimate our next opponent because we learned our lesson there. Then they lose to Guatemala. All of a sudden, yeah, you had your blowout win over Honduras, but what did you do in this competition? How much does this change the way we look at Canada going forward? Because the same things apply to them that was said about the United States. This is your last competition before the World Cup comes here in less than a year's time.
I think it doesn't change it, because I think that we're still kind of expecting Canada. We're still kind of seeing what Canada is, exactly what type of team this will be at the next level in the World Cup. Yes, they wanted a better result. I think everybody involved in the Canadian national team was like, this could be our chance. Didn't go as well, but I think this is a huge learning experience that you just can't get yourself in a spot to go down 10 men against anybody, because when you have a team that is hungry in a competition like this, where it's so important to just claw and skate, be able to just Do enough to get to the next round. Just don't lose, right? In a cup competition, you just don't lose. Guatemala able to get the equalizer.
It seems to me you're letting Canada off the hook a little bit here, Stefano, because I think if this is the United States that has a result like this, we're going crazy right now.
Not with this U.S. team. Not with this current U.S. team. Not with this U.S. team. Sorry,
losing to the 106th ranked team in FIFA rankings. Not that the FIFA rankings mean everything, but losing to a side like Guatemala, considering the history of side, and let's talk about the talent that Canada have as well on the roster. If the United States had taken a squad with that talent and lost, all respect to Rubio Rubin, he's playing for the Charleston Battery right now. They lost to this squad right now, I think that we'd be absolutely melting down in the United States.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. With this U.S. team, I just don't know what we're going to expect on every single time. For Canada, yes, this is an upset. This is a bad loss for them. They drew the game in 90 minutes, obviously go to a penalty kick shootout. Couldn't keep their composure about them as far as finishing off a penalty kick shootout. With this U.S. team, I think that's a bad comparison just because this is not the A team. And I've been kind of screaming on this mountain here for the last month where the context matters for this U.S. team and we don't exactly know what it is. But for Canada, yeah, this is a bad loss. You don't lose to Canada. You can't lose to Guatemala if you're calling yourself the cream of the crop in CONCACAF. I agree with you there. And this man is going to have a lot to answer for. He's been kind of taking a lot of shots at the U.S. men's national team in the past. You got to take care of your house. You got to take care of what's going on with your side. And yes, this is a bad loss. I still don't really, it doesn't really change the way I view this Canadian team. To me, it's still a solid team in CONCACAF that can have some good results, but really hasn't proved it at the highest level yet. So I'm still viewing them the same way. It's a bad loss in a penalty kick shootout. That context matters. So I still don't view them differently, but I view them as this is a tough loss and the missed opportunity for them to try to win or at least compete in a final in Gold Cup.
I guess I'm trying to frame this, from a different perspective. We're not as emotionally attached to it because this is the Canadian national team. When the United States get a red card and lose in the Copa America to Panama, we freak out, right? When they lose in another competition to Panama, we freak out. Panama are considered a better side than Guatemala.
Yes.
And I think that's the context I'm just trying to put this in right now because maybe the expectations for Canada are different from the United States, but I feel like a whole lot of people have been telling me lately this Canada side are better than the United States. At least the United States team that's competing in this competition right now.
That's key. But that context matters, though. But the context matters is that this team, I don't have any expectations for this U.S. men's national, this current squad that's at this tournament. It's not an A team. This is clearly a B team. Whether you want to say that maybe some of these players belong in the A team and belong with the effort that they're showing in this tournament, that's another conversation. But as far as this team is concerned, I don't have a ton of expectation. I guess I'll say this. I do expect them to beat Guatemala if they're faced off against them. I do expect them to beat Guatemala. But still, it's still not, to me, Mexico is the favorite for this tournament going in, and they still are the favorite right now.
Interesting for Canada. They open up with a blowout win over Honduras, but they draw to Curacao. Yeah. They get a win over El Salvador, and now they lose in penalties to Guatemala. We'll see what it all means going forward.